Good morning, dear students. Welcome back to our online class. So, we are continuing with our English literature short story B. Wordsworth, written by V.S. Naipaul. In the previous video, we have seen that how the B. Wordsworth, the stranger, makes the boy to understand that he is going to tell a great secret, and the secret is that he is writing a very the greatest poem. Okay, and he says that he is planning to finish that in about 22 years. That means he started writing already 5 years back, and now he is just continuing, and he is expecting that he will be completing by 22 years. And when the boy asked him that what is that poem, then how many lines you might have written so far, so he says that I write only one line in a month. Okay, so and what's the last line that he has written in the previous month is the past is deep. Okay, now this single line, as I told you yesterday, the past is deep, it has very deep meaning also. Now the past of any person is obviously very deep, because you cannot make out that from where until how much depth the story lies, isn't it? There could be very intrigues of stories within the stories. Okay, flashbacks within the stories, lots of other elements might be there, one story related to the other story and that related to other story. So it's very, it's not easy to dig out the past of any person. So he says that the past is very deep. So that is the line, single line he has written, but it has the different meanings and connotations that can be brought out of an equal 100 or 1,000 line poem. So I said it's a beautiful line. So the boy, he don't have much knowledge about this poem, but still he says that wow, it's a very beautiful line. The past is deep and very, it sounds very meaningful. B. Wordsworth said, I hope to distill the experiences of a whole month into the single line of poetry. So, what does he do? The whole experience of the month, that is a 30 days experience, he tried to, put under one umbrella term and make it a single line. That actually what he does. So in 22 years I shall have written a poem that will sing to all humanity. So he says that when I complete this poem by the in 22 years, then my poem will be sounding something so meaningful that it will sing all the necessary things that is required for a good humanity. Okay, or maintaining a good humanity. I was filled with wonder. Now, the 10-year-old boy, how much he will understand about the poetry and the connotations inside it. Okay, so the boy was quite shocked and he was in wonder. Our walks continued, and they kept continuing the walks. We walked along the sea wall at the dock site one day, and I said, Mr. Wordsworth, if I drop this pin in the water, you think it will float? So he says that, Mr. Wordsworth, what do you think? If I drop this pin in this water, will the pin will be floating or it will be getting immersed inside that? Okay, it's a very basic physics question, of course. Okay, so he said, this is a strange world. Drop your pin and let us see what will happen. There are certain things which are always assigned and set by the society itself. Okay, now we know that if you consider this as a scientific thing, or from the matter of science, you can see that obviously the pin will be immersing inside the water, because we know that the density of the pin is more, that it gets itself immersed inside that. Okay, but if you just take a toothpick or a matchstick and you put it the same inside the water, then what will happen? It will be floating. Okay, so this is a very basic principle that everyone knows. But here he says that but for a poet, it's a thing of exploration, it's a thing of inculcating a lot of imaginations and bringing a different result out of that. So poet says that it's a strange thing. What is that? If I drop this pin in the water, you think that is, it's a strange world. Now this water is actually, he compares to the whole world itself. The element of water is metaphorically used, and it is used for the whole world. And it says that drop your pin, you just drop the pin inside this whole world, and let us see what will happen. Now let us how the world sees. Many things happens with us like that. Many things we see in front of our eyes, but it is up to every individual's unique perception that actually gives a meaning to that. Okay, so what I perceive from my perception and from my thinking may not be the same from my friend's perception or his thinking or her thinking, isn't it? Okay, so if I perceive in one thing a lot of positiveness, my friend may perceive a little bit of negativeness, or even in the positiveness itself, our perception and getting of the results can vary. Okay, it can be different. So here that's why he says that the pin sank. Then what will happen? So the boy says that the pin sank. So B.Wordsworth said, let us see what will happen. Then the pin sank. I said, how is the poem this month? So what is the poem of this month? The boy asked. But he never told me any other line. He merely said, oh, it comes, it comes. No, this month still, it has not finished. And you know that this month has not completed, and still my process on writing the poem of the line of the month is still awaiting. Okay, so still the month is coming, so I have not yet done. So let us see, it is coming again. So he did not give any particular line of this particular month because he has not yet written it. Or we would sit on the sea wall and watch the liners come into the harbor. So as they were walking for some time, they got tired, and they said, the boy says that, okay, let us go and sit on that sea wall, okay, the wall of the sea, and we will be watching the liners coming into the harbor. Now what do you mean by liners here? Liners means the lines of the waves and the tides coming up. Okay, and harbor here refers to the port. But of the greatest poem in the world I heard no more. I felt he was growing older and older, but his words seems to be, having no other further proceedings. And whenever, every time the boy looked at the stranger, he felt like the stranger is growing older and older. How you does leave, Mr. Wordsworth? I asked him one day. So one day the boy was so curious, and he asked that, how does you live? What is your, from where you get the money? And how do you make your living? From where do you get the food? So what work actually you do when you are always writing the poem, and you are always, observing the yards and different places of the people, because you love doing that, then how you manage your living? And it's a very simple and very genuine question from the side of the boy. And he said, you mean how I get money? So Wordsworth makes it clear, no, you mean that you're asking me how I get the money? So the boy nodded. When I nodded, he laughed in a crooked way. He laughed in a very, very crooked manner, as if it's a very unnecessary question, or a very stupid question from the boy's side, or maybe the ignorant question from the boy's side, because he is a child. He said, I sing calypsos in the calypso season, and that lasts you rest of the year. So is it enough? So he says that, do you want to know how I earn the money, or what is my way of earning my living? And he says that I sing calypsos in the calypso season. Okay, calypsos means actually it's a Caribbean song. Okay, Caribbean songs. And the Caribbean songs are based on the contemporary issues of the society, or of that particular time. And he says that I used to sing these calypso songs in the calypso season, and when people listen to my song, they used to give me the money. Okay, and this is how I earn my living. Now the boy asked that, and that is seasonal, isn't it? It doesn't happen every time that you give the calypso song, because people show more interest when it's a time of calypso season itself, right? So the boy is again curious to find out, is it enough? Is that money is enough for you to survive for the whole year? But you will be the richest man in the world when you write the greatest poem. So then he said, then he comes to a conclusion, oh, you are a writer, I just forgot that. And when you complete your greatest poem, I'm sure that you will become the richest person on this earth, okay, when you sell your greatest poem. But B. Wordsworth did not reply, he just kept quiet. and their conversation went on. That day's conversation was put to an end. One day, when I went to see him in his little house, I found him lying on his little bed. He looked so old and so weak that I found myself wanting to cry. So the boy, after many days, again he came to Alberto Street. He came to visit B. Wordsworth in his little small house, and to his surprise, he found that the man is lying on his bed, and he looks so old than what he had seen few days back. Okay, and he became physically so weak in the sense he became so lean and thin. His body, his ribs are all shown out as if he has been starving from many days. His cheeks are swollen inside. You know, the when people grew old, the size of their body becomes smaller and smaller. Physically they become weak and weak. Okay, so looking at this condition of the B. Wordsworth, the boy just felt crying. Okay, he couldn't stand like that looking at this man. He said the poem is not going well, and he said, what did he say? Looking at the boy, he said that I'm not able to complete the poem. The poem is not going well as I expected. He wasn't looking at me, and he was not looking at the boy. Maybe he have that problem of facing the boy, or maybe he feels more sad when he looks at the boy. Okay, so he felt that more emotions will be gushed out, and he couldn't hold on himself. Okay, so he was looking through the window at the coconut tree, and he was speaking as though I wasn't there. And B. Wordsworth was looking outside through the window to that coconut tree, and he was talking to that coconut tree, and as if he is deliberately not knowing or ignoring the boy who is standing there, his friend. Then he said, when I was 20, I felt the power within myself. Then, almost in front of my eyes, I could see his face growing older and more tired. He said, but that was a long time. So, looking at the coconut tree, he was actually talking, and the boy was standing there, and he was looking at the man, and he was looking at the coconut tree, and at the same time he is listening to what the man is telling. And the B. Wordsworth, looking at the coconut tree, was just telling that he was speaking, that when I was 20, I felt the power within myself. When I was 20, that was my very very young age, isn't it, where you are very you have lot of strength within yourself, physically and mentally, and you have that guts to go and do anything, face anything, challenge anyone. Okay, so he says that when I was 20, I had that power. So okay, within myself, I used to feel that confident within myself. Then, almost in front of my eyes, I could see his face. Now the boy, when he looks at the face, he feels like the man is growing older and older. All his sullen cheeks and bones are very clearly visible, sunken eyes. Okay, and he seems to be more restless and more tired. He said, but that exactly, that was a long time back. And he says that 20 years have passed away, and it's a very long time back, and the time which you have passed, it's very difficult to bring it back. Okay, and then I felt it so keenly. It was as though I had been slapped by my mother. I could see it clearly on his face. It was there for everyone to see, death on the shrinking face. We see that it's like a demise of an old era. What do you mean by demise? The story states the good values in between, but it also such as in everyone's life there should be certain kind of good values intricated, like love for one another, devotion, sincerity, sentimentality, then sensitivity, and a little bit of emotional wherever required, not always. Okay, and seeing everything. Now all these things are currently vanished from the present scenario, present time, isn't it? People have become so selfish, people have become so greedy, people have become inhuman, and they lack that emotional attachment and they have become more practical, and they are not devoted or dedicated to whatever work they are involved with, and this all seems to be vanished in the new world. And the poet here, the boy and the B. Wordsworth may not be the poets, but he is trying to, he says that in 22 years, his poem will be one of the greatest valuable message that he can leave back to the coming generation at that time, that is after 22 years. So that is why he says that I am having the greatest poem with me which I will be leaving behind. It's actually again a hint to all those greatest writers who, write very beautiful things, predicted very beautiful things which we are currently seeing in our day to day life. But though they are not alive, their works, their sayings, their thoughts, their thinkings, everything still guides the people in one or other way. Okay, so looking at the poet, sorry, that is the poet here, B. Wordsworth, the stranger, the boy feels very sad, and he feels like he could clearly see on his face that he is growing older and older. And this time, this older is not like unusual that he simply grows old, but it shows that he is approaching towards his death, and death can be seen when his shrinking face actually is the face of the death. Okay, he looked at me and saw my tears and said, the boy, when he was thinking and looking at the old man here, that is B. Wordsworth, his tears started rolling down his cheeks, and looking at the boy crying, the man tried to sit on his bed. Okay, he sat up and he said, come. I went and sat on his knees, and he called the boy and asked him to come near him, and the boy went towards him, okay, near him, and he sat on his knees. Okay, knees, because it can be again devotion, it can be of emotional attachment, or it can be of showing that closure of their relationship, that is their friendship. Okay, so he looked into my eyes and he said, oh, you can see it too. I always knew you had the poet's eye. Actually, he is perceiving that 22 years afterwards what the generation is going to get. This is what I said, that he is perceiving through the boy's eyes. Now, the boy, approximately, if you guess, he is 10 years old. After 22, he will become 33 years old. Okay, so that means he is perceiving this from the boy's eye, that the coming generation will be living through these lines, and they will be admiring and also practicing it. Okay, so he didn't even look sad, and he was not sad because he's going to die, and that made me burst out crying loudly. And he was actually telling the boy that, I always see a poet in your eyes. And he says, and he was not at all sad at his condition, at his lot. He pulled me to his thin chest and said, do you want me to tell you a funny story? And he smiled encouragingly at me, but I couldn't reply. So this time he grabbed the boy towards him and he gave him a tight hug, and he said that, do you want to listen a story again? Because he can't see the boy crying. You remember when the boy's mother beat him very badly. At that time he was crying bitterly, and during that time also B. Wordsworth consoled him by telling him her story of the girl poet and the boy poet. Okay, so now also he can't stand the boy crying, and he asks the boy that, he grabs and brings very closer to him, and he asks him that, do you want to listen a story? Okay, even at this condition where he is at the verge of his death. So, and very smiling, with a smiling and encouragingly he asked the boy, but the boy couldn't give any reply, and we know why. Okay, so we'll continue. I hope that you understood this much part. We'll continue the story in the next class. Till then, take care. Have a good day.